Hey, it's Lee here from Simplify Adulting, and boy, what a perfect time to continue the conversation on planning, pivoting, and improvising. Because my plan was to bring my recording device up north with me to make sure that I could make this video with all the right sound. And guess what? I brought the headphones, but not the actual device that connects into my laptop, so the headphones work. So then I thought, okay, perfect. I need to pivot. And I thought today would make a lot of sense to talk a little bit about pivoting. And I'm sure this is a little shaky. It's not to plan. Hopefully the sound turns out, but it probably is not as good as when I have my microphone. But I needed to pivot to get this video loaded. And so here's what I want to talk about pivoting. Because when we think about pivoting, a lot of times we think about the movement aspect. Like, you move when you pivot. But I think the really critical part of pivoting is that it requires that we place a center point, something in which we pivot around. Think about it. A basketball player plants that pivot foot so that they can, move around and not lose possession of the ball. And when we think about pivoting without planting that foot, I think it can get really messy for us and feel really disconnected and stressful and like even more crazy. And so it's really about planting that center point, saying, okay, I need to pivot. And then the important part of that is, what are we going to anchor to when we plant that pivot foot? And so let's see, I could have anchored to, in that situation, something that sounded like this. Okay, I've got to get this freaking video out because what is important to me is to get it done. I said this is what my plan, to do a video every week. I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm going to plant on that, but I'm going to do it from also a place of, you idiot, I can't believe you forgot this. If your plan was so important, how could you do that? Okay, idiot, dummy, that's ridiculous. And, go on the berating thing. And that's pretty much how it would sound in my head. Or I can pivot, plant that pivot foot in the thing of, okay, whoops, messed up. Okay, but now I'm going to hop into the fact that it's really important for me to make this video, to do the best I can with it, and to kind of think about how I want to show up. I want to show up in the fact that I want to be creative. I want to problem solve my way through this. And you know what? I just want to show up with an integrity and do what I said I was going to do, which make the best video possible each week and post it. And the fact is that it is so important what we decide to anchor to when we plant that pivot foot. Because you know what? Depending on what we anchor to, drastically changes how we move through a given situation. And so that negativity, you know what? When you anchor to that negativity, frustration, anger, self-belittlement, whatever it is, you know what? It's like dipping our moving leg, that leg that gets to move, in cement. And it feels heavy, and it's uncomfortable, and it's exhausting. But when I anchor to the things that really matter to me, like, hey, I want to do a video, I want to do the best I can, and I'm going to be creative. And guess what? Another thing, I thought I was going to go do this in that Airbnb, but I am out on a trail. My happy place is a trail with the pack on, with my dogs over there digging and rooting up some vermin in the ground, right? That's my happy place. I'm going to improvise. I'm not going back and doing it. I'm doing it here. And that's how I want to show up, right? And so that feels so much lighter and agile and aligned. So there you are. Every day, probably every hour, we need to pivot at some point. And it's about placing that pivot foot and then knowing and choosing what we anchor to. So, hey, let me know about your experience pivoting. Let me know any experiences you've had, times when it's gone great, times when you've struggled. And guess what? We'll be back next week regardless of what equipment I forget or where I end up being and not having it go to plan, guess what? I'll be back. So until then, stay happy and healthy, and we'll see you soon.